you're well now.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I'm just wondering if when you're working now, if you think about being not well one day, and if anything you're doing in your work may kind of lead you to that by the specificity, because you're just bearing, to me, it feels like you're really bearing your soul. But because you're funny, it's delicious. It's not painful, but it's very, very specific. So I feel like you've X-rayed yourself from every direction and put it out there. And I just wonder how you feel about living with those specificities down the road, perhaps.
It's an interesting question. One thing, and I think this maybe is just a corollary to this, is that part of the reason I am so vigilant about staying well is that I am concerned that I will let certain people down. There are so many people who will tell me how the Great Depression resonated, one of the best things that I can hear is that they were able to watch it with a family member, and the family member was able to understand better what it's like. Because that was always the most frustrating part of life in general, but specifically depression, was being able to describe what was going on inside you. And the fact that this special was able to allow people to share how they were feeling, that was a great compliment to me. So I feel there is something above just feeling well for myself tied up in me being vigilant about feeling well. That I don't want people to feel like, oh, what hope was there for me? Gary was
do you feel like you've become a standard bearer? Not just for comedians talking about their own mental health, but like for all humans who...
No, but for comedians, I guess.
Yeah.
It was always a fantasy of mine that my suffering, I would be able to make people feel a little bit better in the way that I had.
But isn't that a little weird to use your suffering to make other people feel better?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that when, for instance, quarterback Terry Bradshaw and Bruce Springsteen, these men came out and said, we are suffering, we've been depressed. Somebody said to Terry Bradshaw, but you're Terry Bradshaw. And I'm sure I probably would have said, but wait, you're Bruce Springsteen. And so I figured out that I was, in a way, a similar voice to certain people, that they would just say, well, I thought I would be happy because I was a comedian and I was successful, but it wasn't like that. And I thought, I just haven't gotten successful enough. And then you hear Bruce Springsteen and Michael Phelps, for instance, and you realize, it has nothing to do with achievement. This is chemical, and it lets you off the hook, which I think is such a great service that comedians can provide. But it works the other way too, I always think, because they let you off the hook also for being racist and sexist and homophobic. So you gotta be careful, I think.
You have some show and tell, it looks like you brought. What did you bring?
But before I go to show and tell, for the people watching who are obsessive compulsive, I want to fill in the last piece of how the special got made, which was in the meeting where I met Mike Bonfiglio, and he said, do you mind if I ask my friend Judd if he would like to work on this? And it was Judd Apatow, of course, and I said, yes. Yes, you may.
It's a hard decision.
Right, and then I did an audition where I did the whole show. And a couple days later, but I will say one interesting thing was that I had to be very careful because I knew a rejection could throw me off track. And I remember my wife, in the interim between me auditioning and them saying yes, my wife said, this is really unfair because I'm going to have to live with their decision. But I had said, I will be disappointed. I will keep touring the show, and if it doesn't wind up on HBO, I'm fine with that. And of course then it happened, so I never had to really live with it. But that's how it came to be. And then we shot it in June. It aired in October. And
where'd you shoot it?
Changed everything in Brooklyn at a place called Roulette. Yeah.
And it changed everything, meaning what?
Meaning I was able to write a book based on people who watched that. And then I've had great success in touring my act since then. So the 3 hours that I've written since then, I've been able to tour every year or two.
Does any part of you think that, oh, if only I'd been well the whole time, that I could have elevated myself or advanced in a even different way?
Sometimes, but only because I sometimes tell myself, man, it's a good thing you went crazy.
Because you would have run out of material otherwise?
Well,
I mean, it's good material. It's really good material.
and also just doing really good observational jokes didn't really bring me the following that I have now.
So you're saying you became known
I became
as
better known.
the depressed comic.
Yeah.
But now grown beyond it
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Although many people, I'm sure, still know you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there were people before that who just knew me as an observational.
I knew you as
comedian.
the two-letter state
Yeah,
post
yeah,
office
yeah. It was the state abbreviation. Yeah, that was my Born to Run.
It was your Born to Run. I'm so glad you're back.
Me too.
I want to know whatever you can tell me or show me about how you work. So I love hearing from anyone, scientists, creatives, about, so what do you have, a notebook?
All right, so this is my most recent notebook.
What is
and the first thing
that?
is I make a collage
Yes, you do.
of stickers and photographs. This is my favorite actor, comedian, Chris Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
The back is a lot of set lists and transcription.
Can I see a
notes.
set list? Yeah.
Yeah, so here's a set list
just
from
walk us through that a
August
little bit.
27th. Gen X wave traffic. The Gen X is the last generation that will wave to you for letting them into traffic. Microwave popcorn button was a diversion from the microwave company's inability to get it to make toast. And the same thing happened to aliens, where they were able to make the UFO, but they couldn't figure out how to manage the last 10 feet, so they put out a ramp. And so that's the interesting thing that I love about comedy, is a lot of it is just trying to make connections between things that aren't connected. And so that's
Now that you
very
said
fun.
it, the toast failing seems large to me now.
Shouldn't it have been like, yeah, of course it can make toast. And it cannot. It can make a turkey in 11 minutes. and it can't make toast. But then it also has a digression,
Yeah.
where the toast people are frantic over the microwave oven's prospects for toast making and pushing them out of business. But then the man who runs the toast, and the problem with this joke is it feels too much like the abbreviating of the states, but the man who runs the toast consortium says, we'll always have bathtub suicides. Like and to me, that's the bottom line of capitalism. That's the way they think.
I don't know. we'll always have bathtub suicides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember writing that line?
I remember thinking of it on stage.
Oh,
Yeah. So then I wrote it down afterwards because
Did it
got
work
such
the first time?
It got such a reaction. It got such a reaction. Like, it was similar to what happened in here, where people were like, ah, because it's really, especially for a depressive, to talk about bathtub suicides.
Also, I could imagine you trying to have toast in the bath.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Right, but then I also followed up with, because this is where the real writing comes in. So you have that line where he says, we'll always have bathtub suicides. But then I thought of something that he says after that. You want to frighten me? Tell me they've outlawed dead-end jobs and loveless marriages. then I'll start panicking. Because as long as there's despair, we will sell toasters. The man was a psychopath, really.